Welcome to the StartupCamp.com podcast, where each week our goal is to bring you some of the most influential entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and best-selling authors of our time. Leaders such as Dave Ramsey.
People that, whether they're wealthy or whether they're not, that are other-centered are attractive people. People that are self-centered are not attractive people. That's humility.
Pat Flynn.
Your earnings are a byproduct of how well you serve your audience.
And Patrick Lencioni.
If you want to have a team culture, if you're really truly interested in teamwork, then you have to find people who have these three qualities.
At Startup Camp, our goal is to see every entrepreneur build a successful life and business. My name is Chris Graby. I am your host. I hope you came ready. Buckle up. The Startup Camp podcast starts right now. On today's episode, you're going to hear from a man who has a passion and a desire to see people's lives change, specifically change by bringing clean and safe drinking water to people in developing countries. I'm talking about Scott Harrison. He's the founder of an organization called Charity Water, and it launched just over 12 years ago. And they have done 30,000 plus projects all across the globe to help bring clean water in 26 different countries. We talk about his brand new book called Thirst. And what I love about this book is that all the proceeds of the book are going to help provide clean water for people all across the globe. And in our time together, we talk about his time as a nightclub promoter and how those were some of the darkest days of life, and how he left New York and went off and served in Africa and had a heart to see people who did not have drinking water, who were dying. And he said he had to change it. And literally he has. He's changed so many people's lives. We talk about the ins, the outs, the ups and downs, the vision of starting something like this, and how he changed the way people see charity. You are going to absolutely love this conversation. So get ready. Here's Scott. Well, Scott, welcome to the StartupCamp.com podcast. We're glad to have you back.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Great to chat.
Absolutely, man. Well, for those who maybe don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do, what you lead, and a little bit about your family as well.
Sure, man. So I'm recording this from New York City, where it's actually raining incredibly hard at the moment. I live down in Tribeca, Lower Manhattan. I've got a wife and two kids, 2 and 4, older boy, younger girl. I live about 7 minutes from my office, 7-minute walk, which is pretty sweet. And lead an organization. Unless it's raining, yeah, exactly. And I lead an organization called Charity Water for the last 12 years. We work in 26 nations around the world, bringing clean and safe drinking water to people in need. And we've been able to raise about $320 million now and help get clean drinking water to 8.5 million people out of 663 million. So in some ways, our work feels like it's just beginning. We've got about 1/78 of the problem we're trying to solve done so far. So we just had our anniversary a couple weeks ago, and I'm excited to see where this all goes.
Man, I love it. It's an amazing story, and we're going to touch on your book here in a second, which kind of covers the story and how Charity Water came into existence and all that's happened between before and after and all that. And I can't wait to get into that. But take a second and share. I love being that I came from the nonprofit world. Share about your model. It's a very unique model, and I think it's something that people can get behind. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, when I started the org, so 12 years ago, I had the advantage, I guess, of never working at a charity before and having no institutional knowledge. So as I started talking with my friends who were my age and even younger, and just started talking to them about charities and what they were excited about giving to, I realized that there was this huge disenchantment. There was a cynicism, a skepticism out there that people were not giving to charities because they didn't know where their money was going to go, or they didn't know how much of their money would actually reach the people that the charity was claiming to help. I found that there was real data behind this. USA Today had told Americans and found 42% of people in the country say they don't trust charities. And came across another study by NYU, found 70% of Americans said they thought charities either wasted money or badly wasted money. Wow. And so that was really the problem I wanted to address. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I looked at that as an exciting opportunity. I wasn't going to be trying to steal charities or poach donors from other charities. We were going to reach out to this whole set of people who didn't trust, who weren't giving, and create a new business model, something they could believe in, something they would get excited about giving to. So the real vision for my work now over the last 12 years has been to reinvent charity, to reimagine the experience and the values and the transparency and all this stuff. So really the first pillar was simply to tell people without exception that 100% of whatever they gave to Charity Water would directly fund water projects and help people get clean drinking water. They would pay for no overhead, no office costs, no toner for the copy machine, no salaries, no flights. And I opened up a separate bank account and said, I'm going to go and get a very small group of visionary entrepreneurs, business leaders, and investors to pay for all those costs, to pay for the unsexy costs. So we would have 2 bank accounts audited separately, and 100% of every public donation would always go to help people get clean water. So that really took the most common objection out there, the most common objection for why people don't give, just off the table. It eliminated it. You know, it was a little bit of a drop the mic. How much of my money's going to go? Every single penny. And just to show how serious we were, from the beginning, we began to pay back the credit card fees incurred. So to this day, if you went on our website right now and you pulled out your American Express and you made a $100 donation, while I wish that Amex passed that full amount to us, Amex takes their cut. So I get about $97.
Right.
And we actually pay that transaction fee back, money we didn't even get from your donation. This group of private donors makes up the 3%, and then we send your entire $100 to the field to help people get clean water. And the second pillar was just to prove what we were doing with the public's donations, just to show proof. And at the beginning, we were fortunate just to have good timing. Charity Water started, the same time as Twitter and the same time as Google Maps, even. Something we take for granted now. Well, that didn't exist 13 years ago.
Right.
And I remember meeting the Google Earth founder and realizing that, oh my gosh, Google was building this place where we could geolocate every one of our water projects, no matter where it was in the world. And for the cost of a handheld GPS device, they cost $50. We could train all of our partners out there, the hydrologists and the well drillers and the technicians, just to turn on a $50 GPS device, take a photo of that reading, take a photo of the completed project, and then we would upload all this. So we could tell someone, here is a picture of your well, the well that you sponsored, the well where 100% of your money went to. So proof was really the second pillar. And then the third pillar, I would say, would be trying to build an epic and imaginative brand. As I looked at the charitable sector years ago, I saw anemic brands. I saw almost a poverty mentality when it came to branding and design and marketing. And charities thought, well, if our website looks too nice, or if our office looks too nice, people aren't going to want to give. They're going to think that we're spending our money on the wrong things. So what you got often was just a lack of excellence. I mean, things looked ugly on charities' websites. You also got this leftover feeling of shame and guilt-based fundraising. Depending on the age of people listening, some people might remember those commercials from the 80s with Sally Struthers and the kids with flies landing on their face as they looked towards the camera in slow motion, and the 800 number scrolled across the bottom of the screen. And these ads actually worked. They got people to respond. But it wasn't the brand that I wanted to build. I mean, you would never go and tell your friend about one of those ads. You would never wear the T-shirt of a charity that made you feel shameful, that exploited almost poverty porn. So, if I thought about the brands that I respected, the brands I wanted to tell my friends about, or the ones that I wanted to wear their logo, they were very different. I mean, it was brands like Nike. who inspired people and told stories of heroism and courage and people overcoming adversity. If Nike were a traditional charity, it would feel opposite. It would be as if Nike would tell people, look, you're fat and you're ugly and lazy. Turn off the stupid TV and go for a run. Well, that wouldn't work.
Right.
People don't want to be talked to like that. And they certainly wouldn't want to go buy clothes of a company that made them feel like that or talk to them like that. And instead, Nike has said, look, there's greatness within you. If you don't have legs, you can complete a marathon. You don't have arms, you can climb a mountain. And people rise to the occasion and they feel inspired. And people do turn off the TV and go buy a shirt or jogging shoes and try and get fit. So I just thought a lot of charities had branding exactly wrong. And I wanted to build an imaginative, inspiring, hope-filled brand that invited people to participate because it was a joy and it was a blessing and not out of debt or obligation. We hear this phrase giving back now ad nausea. Everybody seems to be giving back.
Right.
I hate that language. It makes it sound like we have pillaged and plundered to such extent that it's finally time to throw some scraps back to the poor. It's if I walked over to you and I snatched your phone out of your hand, you would say, give it back, right? It's not a generous word. So, I tell companies they should just drop the word back. You don't need back. Just talk about giving. We're building a culture of giving in our company. We're building a culture of giving in our family, giving of our time and our talent and our money because we want to, because it's a joy, because we've been blessed with so much and we're able to, not because we have to. So the third pillar was brand. And then the fourth was just using local partners to actually do the work. I'd seen some well-intentioned Westerners kind of make a mess of things in Africa and just feel completely like fish out of water. And I just believed for our actual work, helping people get clean water, for that work to be sustainable, for it to be culturally relevant, it had to be led by the locals in each of these countries. So we put these four things together, which as I hear myself saying them now, it just sounds like common sense. This doesn't sound like, we're building rockets or, landing them on platforms in the ocean. I mean, this is just tell people what you do with their money, prove impact, try and build a really amazing brand, and then work through the locals. But these things were so unique at the time that they just led to absolutely explosive growth.
No, that is awesome. And you're right. Your company and this organization has made such a huge impact and helped so many people. And I love what you're doing. And you're also kind of building onto the brand with this brand new book that you've written called Thirst. And I love the tagline, a story of redemption, compassion, and a mission to bring clean water to the world. This is your story, really the good and the bad. You're extremely transparent in it. What drove you to write this book?
Well, for people that don't know my story, I was a degenerate nightclub promoter for 10 years, hooked on cocaine and alcohol and cigarettes and gambling and pornography and pretty much all the depravity that you might imagine would go along with the territory of someone working at 40 nightclubs over a 10-year period. And I had rebelled against a very conservative Christian upbringing. So really the first act of my life was helping to take care of a mother who was an invalid after a freak carbon monoxide gas leak in our home. And then at 18, I rebel and I moved to New York City and I become this club rat. And then I come back to faith and morality. And there's a lot to there. There's guns involved and there's drugs and lots of kind of darkness. But there was a moment where I came back and came full circle and really wanted to change my life and wanted to look exactly the opposite. And, the story that unfolded is really the creation story of Charity Water. And I think, the why behind the book, both I think in the Charity Water story and in the how we did it, how we raised $300 million, how we got, well over 1 million donors from 100 countries involved and how we built the movement. I think there's a lot in there for other entrepreneurs, for other social entrepreneurs. There's a little bit of a playbook in there. And certainly some of the boneheaded mistakes that we made also. I mean, I wanted to be completely transparent about the failures as well as the successes. And then on a personal level, as I travel the world, I get to speak maybe 150 times a year now in my role. And I'm constantly meeting people who feel stuck. They feel trapped. They feel like their past dictates their future, and they have regrets about the past. And I guess I would just hope that the book would inspire people. I mean, as you read it, the chances are you are not nearly as bad as I was. I mean, whatever you think you've done in your life, just wait until you read this book and you're going to be like, wow, I have in great shape. Yeah. And, I really believe no one's beyond redemption. And one of the cool things just writing the story is realizing how many of the things from my past, so many of the dark things I was able to redeem as I changed my life, as I walked 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So hopefully there's a lot in it. I mean, I was conscious of the double entendre in the title, my thirst, my passion to try to get on the right path, to try to live a life with meaning. And then it's actually the literal thirst of 1 out of every 10 people alive on the planet, of the 663 million people who are drinking bad water as we sit here and talk. 663 million people are walking, to swamps and ponds and rivers to get water that could kill them as they drink it. And that's just not okay. It's not okay to live in a world where, people have internet and not clean drinking water.
No, that's so good. So powerful. I want to jump into the book because, I had the opportunity to dive in and it's so good. And I want to take a second and go back to the story about your mom. And I love how you broke the book down, kind of these 3 kind of pillar moments in your life, kind of this kind of rough season, early season life, kind of discovering who you are, and then kind of this coming on the other side and the ups and downs of Charity Water. And so I kind of want to unpack each one of these seasons as we go. And I first want to start with your mom. I know you touched on it there a little bit. Let's talk about kind of the early struggles and some of the things you had to face at a young age as a kid.
Yeah, well, without doing the whole book, I guess, right. There was a moment at 4 years old, and we moved into a house, and unbeknownst to us, the gas company had installed a leaky furnace, and my dad and I got a little sick. My mom got really sick, spending all 24 hours in the house in winter fixing it up. And on New Year's Day, she passed out, and we found massive amounts of carbon monoxide in her bloodstream. And after rushing her to the hospital or testing her blood, she was never the same again. She didn't die, but her immune system irreparably died that day. And mom was never the same again. She wore charcoal masks. She was connected to oxygen. Everything chemical seemed to make her sick from this point on, from perfume to books to radio waves to car fumes or fabric softener or soap. So she lived in a sterile environment, just avoiding exposure to the normal chemicals that we would just process every day. So family planning stopped, and I grew up as an only child, playing piano on Sundays in the church and just being that good kid. And then just walked away from it all at 18 and said, hey, I dedicated the first part of my life to playing by the rules, to taking care of my mom. Now it's my turn to go have some fun. And that led me to move to New York City and just go completely nuts for about 10 years. Wow.
Yeah, no, I have a very similar story myself. I wasn't quite 10. I hit the wall at about 3, but
oh my,
you were right. It was
really
the most intense 3 years of my entire life, man. So it was, there was definitely tipping points, but everything you talk about, I'm living in the same world you were, man. So it's thankful to be on this side of it. For sure. So let's take a second. You talk about you talk about New York City and what you were encountering in 10 years of just insanity. Tell me what was the breaking moment that literally led you? You talk in the book about how you left New York to go volunteer as a photographer on the other side of the planet. Unpack that piece of the story a little bit. So interesting to me.
Yeah. So there was this moment in Punta del Este, and I was with all the beautiful people. I drove a BMW at the time. I had a Rolex watch. I had a Labrador Retriever. I had a grand piano in my New York City apartment. And my girlfriend was on the cover of fashion magazines. And all of these things that I had been chasing for 10 years, I got some degree of success. And this trip to South America, we were surrounded by opulence. And I remember being waited on by servants in this compound with pools and horses walking around in the backyard and a mega yacht to rent. And it was, I remember specifically going to the fireworks store and spending $1,000 on fireworks as our little group. And we just blew them up in our backyard. And it was something about just the over the top, almost Wolf of Wall Street kind of scene that it just led me to realize, there's never going to be enough. Somebody would always have a better looking girlfriend. Somebody would always have a better watch, a better car. People would have planes. Like this was the endless pursuit of me, of selfishness, of hedonism. And this was never going to end well. And I just began thinking about what my legacy, what legacy I might lead, and what my tombstone might say. And at this point, had I continued, my tombstone was going to read, "Here lies Scott Harrison, the nightclub promoter, who's gotten millions of people wasted." I mean, that's it. That's the only thing I did. I got people drunk for a living, and the drunker they got, the more money I made.
Right.
So, my parents, there's a faith story here. My parents had been praying for 10 years. They had churches praying. They had little old ladies locked in prayer closets praying. And I had no interest in any shred of spirituality or morality over that time. And then, something happened where I reached the end of myself and began to yearn to come home back to the faith and back to the morality that I guess I'd never really disbelieved. I just hadn't wanted to follow. It seemed like it was a bummer. It seemed like rules that were there to suppress me and stifle my freedom. So I began to pray again on this trip, and I'm doing tons of drugs and drinking like crazy. So this is kind of, around 2 p.m. the next day where I wake up with a hangover and I start to pray and I'm reading the Bible and I'm reading some deep theological book that my dad had sent along on the vacation. And this just leads to a real awakening. And I come back to New York City determined to make a change and determined to find my way out of nightlife, to find my way back home to virtue. And, I write about all the kind of sort of details in the book, but, there was a moment that involved guns in a nightclub. And it was a moment where I was able to get perspective and just walk away from it all, sell everything I owned. And then that led me to live in the poorest country in the world, a place called Liberia.
Crazy. And so what were you doing in Liberia? What was your next job? What were you in charge of? You leave this world. What did you step into?
Well, so I sell everything I own. And I asked myself the question, what would the exact opposite of my life look like? What would the 180-degree turn feel like? And the only thing that the only thing I could think of was quit all the drugs and quit all the stuff that I was doing and go serve the poor, go serve others instead of myself for 1 year. And wouldn't it be amazing if I could actually do that in the poorest country in the world? So I applied to these famous humanitarian organizations that I'd heard of over the years. And then to my surprise and dismay at the time, I'm denied by every organization. I mean, no one has any idea what they would do with a nightclub promoter. These are serious people, serious humanitarian organizations. So really the only one that took me was the job that I accepted. And the beautiful irony there was it wasn't even a job. It wasn't even just volunteering. I actually had to pay them $500 a month to volunteer.
Oh, man.
So this was reverse income. I mean, this was negative income.
You're like, let me just throw a big party real fast. I'll get all the money you need and then I'll come volunteer for you.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Crazy.
So the role that they offered me was that of a photojournalist. And, I'd gotten a communications degree from NYU and I'd always taken pretty good photos and I was a pretty good writer. And I went to Liberia with a medical mission, a group of doctors operating on a huge hospital ship that would sail up and down the African coast, bringing the best doctors and surgeons to people who just couldn't afford access to medical care, sometimes to countries that just didn't even have hospitals, or in this case, Liberia, when we went in, had no electricity or running water anywhere in the country. It had just come out of a 14-year civil war. So I began to take photos of the conditions that people were living in, and then the incredible sickness and atrocity we were seeing. I mean, many people had been burned by the rebels who would pour hot oil on their children's bodies, trying to fuse their arms or their legs together. And we saw flesh-eating disease. We saw leprosy. We just saw unthinkable horror and sickness. But we were with these doctors who were determined to help. And I'm taking pictures of people who are blind and then can see after a cataract surgery, of 60-year-old women with giant cleft faces or cleft lips and palates, and food and water spilling out of their mouth their entire lives, and then a completely new face and completely new mouth and lips as surgeons would restore their dignity. So this whole time, the cool thing is I rolled to Africa with 15,000 people on my club list. So I had 15,000 emails, and back then open rates were like 100%. Yeah. So it was really cool because people went from getting invitations to get drunk at the Prada megastore opening in Soho, New York, or Cosmopolitan magazine party or MTV party. They went from getting these invitations to then getting stories of people, with extreme sickness and deformity, who were then being healed by these doctors. So I remember some of the response I got. Certainly some unsubscribes, right? Some take me off the list. For sure. But then other people said, well, I need to do something like you're doing. I have been looking for a way to get involved. And I didn't know that this suffering was out there, that these needs could be met. How do I help? How do I sign up? How do I give? So I learned that almost in an instant, I was able to redeem the 10 years of list building and just tell a completely different story, a redemptive story, a story about compassion and empathy and hope and healing, and really see that story or all of those stories collectively move people in a really positive way. So I spent a year there, and then that turned into 2 years. And on that second tour, my second year there, I really came across the dirty water issue. And as I traveled through the country, I just saw people drinking from swamps and from ponds and from rivers. And I had never seen a human being drink dirty water before. I was selling bottled water for $10 in our clubs. Right. $10 a bottle. People wouldn't even drink the water sometimes. They would just order a bunch of bottles and drink champagne or vodka instead, let them sit there on the table. And I learned that 50% of the people living in Liberia didn't have clean water to drink. Half the country. So, no wonder we had healthcare issues. No wonder people were so sick. They didn't have the basic need for health met. So I became really interested in water by way of health, by way of the doctors and surgeons. And when I came back to New York City at 30 years old, among everything I had seen, that was just the one thing that stuck in my craw. That was the one thing that was not okay on my watch. Not on my watch, are 660 million people going to live without clean water? Not if I can do something about it.
And then obviously that birthed the vision of Charity Water. And I love in the book where you talk about, all right, you're back in New York, right? You've had this transformation, but you come back to a real world of, oh yeah, I left this and there's some cleanup that needs to happen. I've been gone for a little while now. And you're like, I want to start this new mission. I want to change the world. And then you're faced with obstacles. Let's talk about a couple of those obstacles. I think one of the biggest ones was the whole story on your taxes. I think that was crazy.
Okay, well, here, let me just kind of establish a little context first. So nightclub promoters make great money. We party for a living, and we live so far above, whatever money we're making because we're flying around on other people's planes, and other people are paying for dinner and drinks and, whatever the heck we're doing. Nightclub promoters are typically not very good at saving money. Whatever we make, we spend a little more. or at least most of my friends did at the time. So when I came back from Mercy Ships, I was completely broke because I'd given everything I had to Mercy Ships, to the people that I'd met in Africa, the people I was trying to help. And I come back to New York City, not just broke, but actually to find out that my club partner had never dissolved our company. And I was $30,000 in debt because he hadn't paid our corporate taxes. So I immediately have to get on a payment plan with the IRS to make good on this. I also didn't have a place to live. So he lets me live on the walk-in closet floor of Soho Loft. So then to make matters even worse, he was doing lots of drugs in his apartment, but I had nowhere else to live. So if you think about it, Charity Water started with a guy who was $30,000 in debt, sleeping on a closet floor, and the first office was basically a drug den. So this is not how you want to start a world-changing charity.
But it's all four of those pillars, really.
It's really all I had. I mean, I needed a place to stay, and when my friend would come home, partying and doing drugs, I would run out. I'd be working from a Starbucks or the deli sometimes at 10 or 11 o'clock at night nearby. So, in some ways it's been fun to recount that and to go look at some of the photos of the first apartment and that closet and really to go back to the beginning because, obviously things are a lot different now. We have an amazing headquarters in Manhattan. There's 100 people in the office at this headquarters. And it's very different now, but it was very humble in the beginning. And the early days, it was just me running around with a laptop, making 10 to 15 presentations a day to anybody who would look at my photos, who would hear my stories and just say, hey, look, will you help? Will you give? Will you help me start this thing? And I heard way, way more no's than yes. Way more no's than yes.
So I think the piece that I love is you're talking about, okay, there's the physical obstacles, there's the money, where am I going to live, how are we going to pull this all off? But there's also this heart piece. I mean, you're literally having to go, okay, now I'm a different guy. I want to make this impact. Talk to me about that, because I know there's people out there that go like, you said, my story is crazier than your story ever could be. There's someone listening going, could I actually start a charity like this? Could I be some kind of social entrepreneur that could make an impact in someone's life? Talk to me about the heart shift, the mindset shift that you had to have to go, yes, I'm capable. I'm a different person. I can step in and lead this thing. I have a vision and I want to bring it to life. What was that process like for you?
I don't know that I thought about it too much at the time. It was just, there seemed to be a real responsibility to do something about what I'd seen. You can't live, you can't. I couldn't live so deeply for so long amidst such extreme suffering and then come back to the waste and the abundance of my former life without needing to engage, without needing to do something about it. So I just started. I think one of the things that I had going for me was I was a promoter. So if you think about the things that I had done well to build my business in nightlife, I just promoted parties. I was constantly finding new ways to get people excited about new clubs and building the list. And we would throw pool parties where we'd hire lifeguards and blow up 100 beach balls. We would throw pajama parties where we wouldn't let anybody in the club unless they were in pajamas. I mean, there was a creativity that was required. And you're constantly promoting. You're calling people saying, this awesome thing is happening. You don't want to miss it. Come out, get past the velvet rope, and you're going to have a great time. So in a way, I was just doing the exact same thing. I was just promoting something radically different. The issue was very different. I was saying, look, people don't have clean water. They're drinking from swamps. Children are dying of diarrhea. Women are walking 8 hours a day to swamps. This is not okay. Will you please help me end this? We can do something about this. There are solutions. So I was just running around showing people my photos. This wasn't someone else's photos. These were photos I took. And I would say, well, when this girl, Hawa, told me what water meant to her, or when this woman told me about losing her child in her arms of diarrhea, this is how I felt. So there was just a passion and an eyewitness authority because I had lived it out so deeply. because I knew the story and I'd walked with these people and I'd lived in these villages that enough people said yes to keep the thing going.
And you share a story that I just think is so remarkable, just from a CEO or any kind of startup or someone who just believes so much in what they're doing and what they've created. How you made some early CEO mistakes by these pitch emails, but it ended up turning out to be a really awesome day. Love for you to share that story.
The 100% model, maybe when I described it earlier to some entrepreneurs listening, they're like, okay, so how was he going to pay for his overhead again?
Right.
So wait a minute, the guy's going to build a business, an organization where he can't use any of the money he raises from the public to actually pay for a single operating cost, whether it's a salary or an office. So that was really challenging. I'll be honest. And I was just bootstrapping it at the beginning, trying to get 500 or 1,000, and I wasn't getting paid. And we were volunteers in the very beginning. And then I would get a little bit of some donor would give a little money for our overhead, and we would have some oxygen. We could hire the first employee and then the second employee. And, another foundation would give us a little bit of money for our operating costs, so we could grow a little more. But I was running these two things in balance, and I wasn't running them in very good balance. And about a year and a half into the organization, we'd raised millions for the Clean Water Project. So that was working. That was really effective, this 100% model. People were giving for the first time in their lives, saying to us, this is the first charitable gift I have ever made. But the other bank account at one point had $111 in it. So imagine having $880,000. Right, $880,000.
Wow.
And then $11. So I was going to shut the organization down. We just couldn't make payroll. We were running out of money. The 100% model clearly wasn't working. It wasn't sustainable. And then I'd been writing a bunch of cold emails to people and written to a bunch of entrepreneurs. And one entrepreneur responded and said, hey, pretty interesting idea you've got here. Let me come in and meet you. And we spent 2 hours together. And I remember telling him honestly just how I felt like we were failing, that the 100% model, it was working, but yet I couldn't figure out how to get people excited about the overhead side. And he said, well, I like how clean this is. It's you know exactly what you get, the distinction between the overhead account and the water project account. He said, let me think about your problem. So 2 days later, he sends me an email and says, I really enjoyed meeting you. I just wired $1 million into your overhead account. So we went from shutting the organization down, from insolvency, from a point where there would be no future charity water, to 13 months of OpEx, 13 months of capitalization. And I said, look, I better make sure I steward this gift and go figure out this business model. And really spent the next year trying to go and find other visionary entrepreneurs and business leaders to come alongside Michael and his wife, Sochi, and support us on that side. And if you fast forward now 12 years, 1 million plus donors have now given to the water projects, and 131 families pay for the overhead. And it's been incredible people. It's been the founders of Twitter, of Facebook, of Spotify, of Pandora, senior executives at Apple, venture capitalists, actors like Ed Norton and Kristen Bell, and Depeche Mode pays for our overhead. I mean, it's an incredible group of friends that has come around the full-time staff of Charity Water, come around the 100% model to protect it. But without Michael, without that miracle gift many years ago, I mean, the organization wouldn't have existed.
And I think we just need to make sure everybody hears that you did not know Michael. This was a cold email that turned into $1 million a few days later.
Yeah, and actually 18 million now.
So for anybody out there listening who thinks it's impossible, they're going to hit a brick wall, just keep going, keep hustling. Man, I love that. And I'm sure Michael's been a huge asset from a mentorship perspective. And I want to take a second about someone that you write in the book called, his name's Ross. Who is he? What has his role been with you in this journey? And how's it helped you become a better leader?
Yeah, so Ross was my mentor, and for many years now, he's just a friend. We've rolled off of a business working relationship. He was a very successful entrepreneur that built a tech startup out of Austin, and flipped it, took it public. Got out when its market cap was bigger than several airlines combined.
Wow.
And just retired. And he came out of retirement because he donated his birthday to Charity Water. And he thought our product or our web experience was so bad that he needed to write his friend who had turned him on to the birthday idea a 10-point email critiquing us and our website. And the friend forwarded that email to me. And over the years, I've just been starved for negative feedback. You know, one of the challenges when you're giving the world clean drinking water is that most people are cheering you on, right?
Totally.
Most people are kind of keeping their negative feedback to themselves.
Right.
I mean, I just never come off a stage and, you know, have anyone tell me to stop it. You know, let them die of bad water, Scott. You know, this is harmful aid. The women should be walking 8 hours with 40 pounds on their back and watching their children shrivel up and die of diarrhea. You know, please stop this, right? No one says that. So Ross it was a scathing email. And I remember asking the friend who forwarded the email to me for an intro. And I said, hey, can I get you on the phone? And I think I agree with 8 of your 10 points. And I want to hear a little more color. So we got on the phone, and I think this is key. It was a natural progression. We just had one more call. I went and fixed the things and said, hey, well, do you mind taking a look after I try and fix these and see if you thought we got it right? And it just led to a natural progression of a mentor relationship. We have now exchanged well over 13 or 14,000 emails over the years. But, you know, I didn't write him and ask him to be my mentor. I don't think you can write Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or, you know, Elon Musk and ask for mentorship and hope that happens. This was just, it was really, it was a customer. He was a customer that had a negative experience that then had an extraordinary amount of wisdom and a bunch of free time. And it was transformative for me in my leadership at that time.
I hope everybody who's listening here can say that the power of a mentor and having somebody be able to speak honestly and truthfully that you can trust into your life is so important. Okay, well, man, this book is so good. I couldn't stop reading it. I'm so excited to finish it. I'm almost to the end. And your story is just, thank you for sharing it. And I wanted to take a second. There's people listening on here who maybe they have a dream or a passion. They want to start a charity, or maybe they want to be a social entrepreneur. What advice would you give to them?
I think they have to go in deep. I think I see so many people who they drive by a cause. They know so little about whatever it is that they claim to be really interested in. They just have no proficiency, no depth. For me, I needed to live in the country for a year. I needed to go deep. You know, I think one way to describe this, we hear of people that take the mission trip, right, for a week. Sure. And they might go and paint the orphanage, and the orphanage might have been painted 6 different times that year by 6 different groups. Right. And you don't get any sort of depth of knowledge. It's just not that useful. So, you know, I think first I would suggest that people find, and doesn't mean you need to drop everything and quit your job and become a social entrepreneur, but you got to go deep. So find the thing that you're passionate about supporting, and then actually get into the issue. You know, it's funny. I was lecturing my team here a little bit the other day because, you know, they knew so little about Flint, Michigan. And it took a couple hours to really become, you know, very, very well read on exactly what happened, what was the problem, what were the remediations, what's needed there, who are the actors. I mean, you can go watch a couple documentaries and read 15 articles, and most people just aren't willing to put the time in. Right. And they just have cursory knowledge of so many of these events. I mean, it's taken us 10 years to get really good at delivering high quality, sustainable water solutions for the rural poor around the world. And I think I would just encourage people, find that thing that's not okay on your watch. And this could be the thing that you give your money to. This could be the thing that you give your voice to. And then go deep, become an expert, really try and understand it. And you'll make such a bigger impact if you fully commit.
No, it's great. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs. They're like, yeah, I want to start this company, and it'd be great to help the kids, help the children. It's kind of like a tack on thing where you're like, hey.
Yeah. And how many part-time charities, right? How many people are running a charity part-time? That's fine. I mean, I would suggest that maybe their time would be better spent actually giving their money, giving their time to something that is a full-time endeavor. So that's kind of would be my soapbox at the moment.
No, that's great. I love it.
But I'm really excited for people to read the book, and I don't make any money off the book. The entire book advance and all my author proceeds will go to Charity Water. So just by getting a copy of Thirst, people are actually helping the organization. They're actually helping us move not just the story and the mission forward, but actually helping people get clean water just through the purchase of Thirst.
No, I love that. So with that being said, where can everybody find the book, buy the book? It's out now.
It's out everywhere. It is out everywhere. So, I'm always a big fan of supporting the local bookstores. My local one is a Barnes & Noble, but I'm so excited to share it with the world. And, it was 2 years in the writing. I tried to be unbelievably honest. My wife and others at times have said, I can't believe you put that in the book. I can't believe you went there. So I just, I don't really know any other way. And I would hope that some of the boneheaded mistakes that I and we have made might be helpful to others. And that there'd be things in the book that just might encourage people, encourage them greatly.
Yeah, no, it's so good. So the last question, as you look across the book, it's all over, you've read through it, you know all of it. What did you learn about yourself?
Well, I learned that I'm not naturally introspective. I'm a futurist, so I'm always thinking ahead, not thinking back. So it was a real challenge to go back in time and recreate feelings and scenes. It's much easier for me to barrel ahead. So that took discipline. That was painful, having to relive some mistakes, having to relive people that I hurt. We interviewed 60 or 70 people for the book, and there were people that I'd really hurt in my former life, people that I had not done the right thing by. And sure, I know I'm a different person now, and I'd make different decisions, but that doesn't diminish the hurt that I caused them. So part of it was just was having to take a really hard look at the person I was, and I'm glad I'm not that person anymore. I'm glad I found my way out. And,
sure.
I haven't had a cigarette in 15 years or looked at a pornographic image in 15 years. I haven't touched Coke or gambled or looked at, nothing. Like I've really walked away from all of that, but still having to, I was a real degenerate. You'll see. Well, you already did.
I did see.
You're past that part.
Yep. No, well, good, man. I know this book's going to help so many people. Thank you so much for taking your time here and for making an impact around the world. And I also want to say this, there's people who are listening and going, okay, what can I do? And there's so many cool and neat creative ways that people are giving to Charity Water. Can you just take a second and hit on that? Because I want to make sure that our audience is playing a part in serving this mission. Sure.
Thanks for the opportunity to do that. Yeah. For years, people might have known that we were the birthday charity. People would donate their birthdays to Charity Water. And it's a great idea. You'd ask for your age in dollars, and a 7-year-old would ask for $7 donations, and a 36-year-old would ask for $36 donations. And we raised over $55 million this way. It helped a lot of people.
Wow.
However, the problem was people only did one birthday for Charity Water. So we just keep getting new people every year. In a way, the bigger we got, the less sustainable the whole thing was. So we had a year where we raised $45 million, but January 1, the ticker starts again at 0. All of that is erased with the new calendar year. And we had to go and find even more people to give up their birthdays. And as I started thinking about, and I write about this a lot, we had a down year. I had an existential leadership crisis. I tried to quit as CEO and hand the keys of the organization off to somebody else. And, I write about all that and how I kind of find my way out of that. But the big realization was the businesses of the future, the businesses that I really respected, looked a lot more like Netflix or Spotify or Dropbox, businesses who didn't have to keep getting new customers every year, but who acquired a customer and then kept them happy. So why couldn't a charity do the same thing? Why can't I inspire you to join our mission, share our values with you, make sure that we are values aligned, convince you why I believe access to clean drinking water is the greatest gift you could give any human on the planet, and how we're actually going to do that transparently and efficiently and effectively, and then ask you to join us until the problem is solved. And that might be 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or 15 years, but to ask you just to join us month in and month out. And this isn't that novel of an idea. I'm not landing, rockets and
right.
Barges in the ocean. Everybody knows the Sponsor a Child organizations did this for years, right? $38 a month and you feed a child. But we said, what if we could build a community of people so generous, the world had never seen anything like it before? What if we could connect them? And what if we could give them exclusive content and just keep them engaged with us, giving as they could every month? So we launched this community. It's called The Spring. It is the greatest way you could help us right now. If you care about Charity Water, if you wanted to engage, go to charitywater.org/spring. charitywater.org/spring and join this amazing community of now 30,000 people from 100 countries. And the average Spring member is giving $30 a month. We have college kids giving $10. We have entrepreneurs giving $100 and $300 and $500 a month. It's in some ways less about actually how much people can give, but really about the act of showing up consistently, month in and month out, and then knowing that 100% of your money is going and knowing that it's really making an impact. So I'm really passionate about this. I mean, it's up 220% year over year. It's just been extraordinary to get emails from people who are giving their pension money. People are canceling HBO to join The Spring. I mean,
that's a big deal.
Don't tell some of the, we people are really making sacrifices to be in this community. So I'm really passionate about that. If people want to listen, they could go grab Thirst from anywhere that people sell books and you could join The Spring. And that's really at the end of Thirst. I kind of, I talk about the building of The Spring, the vision for it, and how we think, we're going to get hundreds of millions of people clean water through everyday people who have rejected the apathy that would be so easy to embrace when it comes to a big issue like the global water crisis, right? There are people listening that say, I'm sure thinking, what could I ever do about that? Why should I care? Like, America has good water, right? I've never had bad water. And what we're trying to say is, well, you don't have to, but you could. And wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't you love to reach out your arm across an ocean? Wouldn't you love to bring the best of yourself, your generosity, your creativity, your passion, your compassion to this issue and help people get clean water? And we think we found a really, really good way to do that and to connect you to that impact. So thanks for letting me make the plug, but that's why we do what we do. It's not for us. And every penny of this, every penny of the book is going to slip through my fingers and help other people. And every penny of The Spring, slips through our fingers and 100% gets translated to clean water for the poorest people in the world.
I love it, man. Well, thanks for your heart. Thanks for sharing your story. And we're so glad you came on today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks. All right. Well, what an inspiring conversation. Man, we could have kept talking for a long time. You got to make sure you pick up his book and let's all head over to Charity Water and make an impact there. Of course, as always, thank you for listening. And if you haven't had a chance yet, subscribe, rate, and review to the podcast. It really does mean so much to us. And when you share it, that helps as well. Kind of just spread the word. We are literally trying to help every entrepreneur have a successful business and life. That is why we're here week in and week out. And also, if you haven't got a chance, head on over to StartupCamp.com. We've got some great tools and resources. And we know that every entrepreneur, no matter where your journey is, that you need the tools, right, to help win at business and in life. We've got a lot of great resources and courses for you over there at Startup Camp. So head on over there and check it out. Well, that's a wrap for this episode, guys. We will catch you next time on the StartupCamp.com podcast.